Welcome back to another programming video. Today's topic is functions and reusability. We're going to be covering definition and calling functions in this section of this video. Python is our programming language of choice, and without wasting further time, let's jump straight into it. Now, I'm using VS Code. Feel free to use any platform of your choice depending on your preferences. What is a function? A function is basically a block of code that does something unique, something useful, and may or may not return a value after the code has run. You can give it any name, and also you can run it anytime, and just by calling the name of the actual function that you've created. Now, using that approach help us organize the code in a neatly fashion, and also we avoid repetitions as much as possible, and also we make the code or the program easier to read and maintain, which are good quality for future use. Now, the way you go about defining a function is pretty simple in Python. You use the three-letter def definition, I think it's short for definition, followed by the name of the function, and open close bracket and then a colon, and then you'll notice that there is an indentation by default depending on what you've set on your machine. It could be an indentation of 4 or 2, but in my case I'm using an indentation of 4, so 4 spaces. That's basically what it means. Now, and then you can place in whatever you want the function to do. So whenever this function is called, it will only print the value of hello day. Now, because Python runs from top to bottom, something I've repeated a couple of times in the past, ideally you wanted to first to define the function and then call it after. You cannot call it before. It will highlight it as an error, or maybe say undefined. Not maybe, but it will say undefined. So this is the correct approach to go about how to go about defining a function, creating one, and then calling it after. So if I run this code, I get hello day. And that's basically it. So, and it doesn't matter if you call it multiple times. Python has no problem running that. It's just going to keep on referencing the function and then processing or running the code that is under it. So now what that means also is that you can, for example, define another function that we're going to call trigger. We're going to call it trigger. And then trigger basically is going to trigger, as the word that describes or says, and we want it to trigger greet basically. So whenever trigger is called, greet will be called. And just to make sure that we actually calling trigger first, so we're gonna say calling. So we're just gonna print calling, not vcall, but calling great function, right? Let's put everything here, great function, and then a full stop. And so when we call trigger, so we're gonna have to copy that and change this value. So when we call trigger, because trigger is defined before we call it, trigger will print calling great function, and then it will call great function, and great function, which has been defined before, will then run and print hello day. So let's clear our console and then run that again, calling great function, and you can see hello day. So that's basically how this works. Now, so as I said, you can call the function anytime, and you're still gonna get the same output. And just imagine having to write all of this multiple times just to perform the same operation, we can write it once and just call it as many times as we like to, wherever we want it within our code. And that's the beauty of using functions instead of using repetitive code that makes the code very difficult to maintain and also disorganized, and then just increase the amount of repetition that really defy the whole purpose or even writing code in the first place. So I hope you've learned something new. Until next time, keep well. Bye-bye.